mindset sabotages.
Here's the question. What's going on inside the minds of top achievers that cause them to make extraordinary breakthroughs both personally and professionally? My name is Tim Schur, and I invite you to join me as we take a deep dive into the unconscious mind and discover how to transform your biggest dreams into a reality. Welcome to the How to Be Mesmerizing podcast.
Hey friends, how you doing? It's Tim Schur. Welcome to episode number 2 of How to Take Your Health Back. And we're out for a walk today. So what'd you decide to do? Are you hanging out in the house, or are you jump on your phone and go outside and go for a walk with me? So I'm not sure where you're at. I know that I have some friends in Australia that are watching this, and so it might be the middle of the night for you, so I doubt you're going to be taking a walk, but you can watch the replay, right? And so anyway, it's a gorgeous day out, and I'm excited to share with you my mindset sabotages that are so common, and it just seems like everybody's doing this, and I want to cover them with you and then show you what to do instead, right? Because your mindset and your strategy are the two things that you always have to be upgrading your whole life if you want to feel happy, healthy, prosperous, whatever it is. If you want to improve your health, you've got to make sure you've got a strong mindset. If you want to improve your relationships, you got to work on your mindset. If you want to improve your self-esteem, self-worth, confidence, the ability to get yourself to do things that would make most people nervous and quiver, and you're like, yeah, I'm doing it. How do you do that? By your mindset. And if you want to make more money and grow your business and be more mesmerizing as a leader, how do you do that? With your mindset, right? It's all about self-awareness and upgrading your beliefs and changing the way you talk to yourself and creating an environment that supports you so that you are thinking your way to success. So we're going to talk tonight all about mindset, okay? Tomorrow we're going to be talking about strategy. But I want to share mindset first, because your mindset is more important than your strategy. If your mind's not right, then it doesn't matter how good your strategy is. There are plenty of diets out there that the diet approach is fine, right? Weight Watchers has a good program. I like the South Beach diet, right? So it's all about eating healthy. That's not the problem. People don't need another weight loss book. People don't need another weight loss plan or a diet plan. What they need is the right mindset so that they can actually put into action what they know. And so tonight we're going to be covering 8 mental sabotages, 8 mindset sabotages that I have picked up and noticed over the years from listening to people. And then, of course, like we talked about yesterday, it was really interesting when I would talk to people who were able to increase their energy and increase that I'm never going to be able to make this happen. What I find is that when people go to achieve a goal, they are focusing on, this giant mountain in front of them. And they're like, I have to get to the top of that mountain. How am I going to be able to do this? And the answer is step at a time, right? Remember that old adage, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Why? Because you can't get the whole darn elephant in your mouth, okay? It's too big. And if you try to conquer your whole goal all at once, you're gonna feel overwhelmed. It's gonna feel impossible, especially if you've tried before and it hasn't worked out. And so what we gotta do is we gotta chunk it down, okay? So for example, me making this video series, I decided that I was gonna go for a walk with you every night for the next 2 weeks in a row and share with you the things that I've been learning. And I've been looking at it, and these videos are around 30 minutes. So if I do a 30-minute video and I do that 14 times, that's 7 hours of video. Now, if I sat down and thought I got to make a 7-hour course, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have time to make a 7-hour course. I've already got so much going on. I'm running 3 businesses. I have my family. I've got kids that are, 11 and 15. I've got so much going on right now. There's no way that I'm going to be able to build a 7-hour course. However, that's exactly what I'm doing, because I didn't try to build a 7-hour course. I shrunk it down into smaller goals. Oh, they're so cool. Shrunk it down into smaller pieces, okay? And so instead of thinking, all right, I've got to shoot 14 videos, what I thought was, I need an outline, right? I got to put some structure to it. So goal number 1, I'm going to create an outline. And for that, my first goal was, let's brainstorm some topics. What are the topics that people talk about the most when they're trying to improve their health, their energy, their wellness, their vitality, so that they can live healthy, they can feel good, they can be more productive, and it's much easier to achieve any goal you have when you feel good. And that's why I'm doing this. This isn't a weight loss series. This is a transform your quality of life series, right? Because weight loss is just, if you're heavier, it's a symptom of a life that's, you're not as happy as you could be because you're just putting yourself in food comas all the time or obsessing about food all the time. I have so many people that say, I just want to stop thinking about food. I think about it all the dang time. Even when I'm eating food, I'm thinking about what am I going to eat next? And I don't want to do that anymore. And I get it. So this whole program is really focused on, all right, what can we do to improve the quality of our life? So all these secrets that I share with you that have to do with eating healthy and fitness and taking care of yourself physically, you can use the same strategies to achieve any other goal as well. All right, so with that said, so when I think about, all right, I'm going to create an outline, and then I'm going to go ahead and create the simple steps that are going to go with this outline. I'm going to brainstorm, I'm going to do this and this and this, and then I'm going to look at all those things, those potential topics, and then I'm going to prioritize. Okay, so we can talk about this topic first because maybe that's most important, which is why the first video in my series was, hey, this is the vision, this is the overall view of what we're going to do in this program together. And then, all right, what's next? The next video, which is what we're doing right now, mindset. Because if you don't have the right mindset, it doesn't matter what else we talk about. And so I broke it down. Okay, once I have my outline and I prioritize my action steps, the next thing I'm going to do is say, all right, now what's the first video going to be about? And then I start making that video. Okay, and it doesn't have to be a half hour. It's just going to be until I run out of stuff to talk about. It might be 5 minutes. It might be a short 5-minute video, right? It might be a real quick walk, especially if it's cold outside. So that's how I take a big goal, a 7-hour course, and I break it down into small, tiny, digestible steps, easy to accomplish steps. If I walk in the kitchen and I got a sink full of dishes, and I'm like, I do not feel like doing these dishes, but I do need a spoon. Okay, maybe I'm gonna have some yogurt with grapefruit. I've been eating that lately, it's super good. But I'm gonna have some yogurt with some grapefruit, and I need a spoon. So I don't wanna do the dishes, but I'm gonna wash this spoon. Okay, cool, well I washed the spoon, but now I need a bowl. All right, well I'm gonna go ahead and wash the bowl. And then I wash the bowl and I'm like, you know what? I could use a glass of water to go with this. So then I'm gonna wash the cup. And by the time I wash the spoon and the bowl and the cup, I'm like, heck with it, I'm already into it. I'm just gonna wash the rest of the dishes. And boom, it gets done. Small, tiny little action steps lead to momentum. Momentum leads to you accomplishing more, okay? So when people are trying to achieve a big goal, what they do is they try to shove the whole elephant in their mouth at once. They try to get to the top of the mountain in one jump. And that is such a big sabotage, right? And so we wanna make sure that we're not falling for that, because otherwise you're gonna feel overwhelmed, and we don't want you to feel overwhelmed. We want you to feel confident that you're going through this process one step at a time. So one of the things that you can do is you can say, all right, after watching this video, I'm gonna write down one thing that I got from this, and then I'm gonna turn that into an action step. Okay, so one thing that I got from today, this is a sabotage I've been doing, this is how I'm gonna turn it around, this is what it's gonna look like in my life when I'm taking action in this new way. I'm gonna take big goals and turn them into small goals. I'm gonna take those small goals and prioritize them. Which ones do I think that I can get done the fastest or the easiest, or maybe the toughest one that I have the most momentum right now, so I'm gonna crush that first, and then it's gonna make me feel really excited that I did that, and then I'm gonna go after the next one, but one step at a time. When you do that, you're gonna start to feel excited, you're gonna start to feel motivated, you're gonna start to feel like, I got this, right? Because you're planning correctly, you've got the right mindset. There's no way that we can try to change everything at once. It's just too much. And a lot of times that's what people do. They're like, all right, I haven't done anything, right? I haven't got off the couch and I've been eating like crap for years. And so today I'm gonna walk for an hour, and then I'm not gonna eat any sugar this week. And then I'm gonna stop drinking soda all at once. And then I'm gonna do 20 push-ups at night. And you know how long that lasts? About 5 seconds before they're like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. It's so common even with exercise, right? People haven't exercised forever and then they decide, I'm gonna go for a run. And then they can't walk for 4 days and they're like, heck with this, I'm not doing that anymore. Those are sabotages. So, sabotage number 1, overwhelm. We gotta make sure that we underwhelm ourselves, okay? So that you're breaking it down into smaller steps. And when you do that, you're gonna feel more confident. Okay, number 2, I'm going to attempt to switch these cards in my hands while I'm holding this fancy selfie stick. Okay, sabotage number 2, deprivation, okay? As soon as someone decides that they want to live healthy, what's the first thing they do? They tell themselves all the things that they can't have, and then what do next? Oh, this is horrible. I hate this, right? I can't have any of the things that I want. And then all of a sudden we start to have this giant pity party for ourselves. We start telling ourselves how unfair everything is and why we should be able, because I've had people say this is what I want. I want to be able to eat like a pig and eat whatever I want and still be totally thin and healthy, which would be amazing. But that's not how it works, okay? So, and even if you are thin and you're watching this, eating like crap makes you feel like crap. So the question is, what am I really being deprived of? Because that's a question I asked the people who were really healthy, that had lost weight and kept it off and feeling good. And I said, do you ever feel deprived? And they're like, deprived of what? Deprived of not fitting in my clothes? Deprived of staring at everything in my closet, being totally frustrated and hating myself because I don't fit in anything? Yeah, I don't feel deprived at all of that. Or gorging myself with a bunch of fried foods and then feeling exhausted afterwards and wondering how am I ever gonna, get the kids running around or get caught up on the work that I have to do because I feel like I'm falling asleep right now. No, I don't feel deprived of that. Or not sleeping at night and waking up at 4 in the morning and being frustrated because my hormones are all out of whack because I was eating like crap and I didn't realize that it was the food and the stress that were whacking out my hormones. Everybody says, oh, we're just getting older, and they don't realize it's our lifestyle has a huge part to play in that. No, I don't miss that at all. So when you start to feel like you're being deprived of what? You've got to reframe it, right? You've got to take control of what you're saying to yourself and give yourself a different story. When you tell yourself a different story, you're going to have a different feeling about it. And you can tell yourself whatever story you want, okay? It's not like you have no control over this. You can tell yourself whatever you want. Now, in the beginning, you might not believe what you're telling yourself. You might not believe the new story, but that's when you got to fake it till you make it, right? That's when you keep telling yourself the new story until you begin to buy into it. When does that happen? Well, it's just people will say, how long does it take? And I say, well, as long as it takes, right? But usually, when you hear something enough times, for some people, they just need to hear it once with enough intensity and it sticks. For other people, you might have to hear it for 30 days. But let's just say 30 days, okay? You tell yourself a new story for 30 days, and at the end of this month, let's just assume that you believe that new story. That's a game changer. What if all of a sudden living healthy felt like a blessing? It felt like a gift. It felt like something that you had been missing this whole time and you didn't know it. And now you have it and it's unbelievable. And what if you could have that experience, 30 days from now? That would be amazing, right? And so we just got to tell ourselves something different enough times until we start to buy into it. And every positive belief that I now have, I did not start out with, right? I started out with fear, worry, stress, anxiety, just waiting for the next bad thing to happen all the time. And then that's what I was always looking for, the next bad thing to happen. And trust me, whatever you look for hard enough, you're gonna find. And most people are looking for what they're afraid of. They're looking for what they don't want. They're looking for what they're unhappy about. They're looking for what they feel is missing in their life. And it just creates more of that despair, more of that frustration. Instead of saying, what am I gonna do about it right now? People get caught up in why me? And that will keep you disempowered forever as long as you keep telling yourself that story. So we got to make sure that we are upgrading our story. So instead of feeling deprived, tell yourself this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to eat healthy and feel good and transform what's going on inside and escape the toxicity that's all around us. Because people are stressed out, and they're exhausted, and they're sick, and they're taking pills, and they're spending more time in the doctor's offices. And if you want to avoid all that stuff, then you just start to tell yourself, you know what? I'm going to deprive me of those things, right? And take back my health. So that brings us to number 3 then. If I can get this card out here. So number 3 is the word can't. Now that goes along with sabotage number 2, okay? People, when they start to diet, for example, the first thing they do is they tell themselves, I can't have all my favorite foods, which goes into deprivation. When you say I can't have something, it makes you want it twice as bad, right? If I tell you you can't have that donut, you're gonna be like, oh yeah? Watch me, and then you'll shove 6 of them in your pie hole, because that's what we do. We rebel, we get frustrated. We're like, no, I'm not a child, I'm gonna do what I want. Now, a lot of times, the way that we are taking care of ourselves is directly because of what we experienced when we were little. So I've had plenty of people say that I grew up in a family where we had no money, and so whatever food was there, we had to grab it. I grew up in a family where we were very poor, so we didn't get snacks or treats very often. And I've had people that have also said, you know, I grew up and it seemed like my siblings were favored and they always got the treats and I never got any. And so when I got older, I decided I was going to have treats all the time, right? I was going to make myself feel special. I deserve this. I'm so responsible all the time. This is for me, right? This is the one area where I'm going to take care of me. And I always challenge them with that, because the one area that matters most to you, how you feel about yourself physically, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, how you feel inside of your body, inside of your life, is the most important thing that there is. And that's the area you decide that I'm going to go ahead and trash that. I'm going to show the world. I'm going to trash myself. I'm going to eat myself into cancer. I'm going to eat myself into diabetes. I'm going to eat myself into heart disease. I'll show you. What? And that's what we're doing. We have been brainwashed by food marketing companies to believe that their products make us feel happy, right? They make us feel joyful. They make us feel like this is what life is worth living. And so they use their cartoons and they use their polar bears and they use all the different shenanigans out there, all these marketing tools to push buttons. When you go down the sugar aisle, which is what most people call the cereal aisle, look at all the cartoons that are on the box. Those cartoons on the box are not for you. They're to hook your kids so that your kids drive you nuts until you say, fine, you can have it. Those people don't care that your kids are growing up with all that sugar and then being labeled as ADD and ADHD because they can't sit still because they have a horrible diet. And so the whole thing is such a mess. And when you start to uncover it and look at it, you're like, oh my gosh, this is disgusting how manipulated everybody has become. And a lot of times we don't even know it. And what's worse is when we fight for it, when we tell ourselves that, no, this is what I want, this is what I'm choosing, right? Any drug addict will say that. I can quit anytime I want, okay? And then they'll defend, it's not a problem, right? Until they OD or they've lost their job or, all kinds of, they've lost their marriage and their kids don't talk to them anymore. All these horrible things that happen while we sit there and defend our behavior. And so now, most of the time, people that are doing that are not watching a video like this. So that's probably not you. But there are times where you are going to find yourself getting a little self-righteous and saying, hey, I deserve this, right? And then you just got to ask yourself, is it that I really deserve it, or am I just choosing to eat this because I think it's going to make me feel better in the moment? And if that's the case, it's okay to do that once in a while. We're not going for perfection. We'll get to that one. We're not going for perfection, okay? I know that there are some people that feel like if they put any sugar in their body at all, that they can't help it, right? They've got serious impulse control, and so or issues with impulse control, and so they just can't eat sugar. It's like some people are wired where you just can't put alcohol in them. It's like they're allergic to alcohol, and once it's in you, you're powerless, Okay, so same is true with sugar, but that's a small percentage. Most people who call themselves sugar addicts and chocoholics actually are not. They're physically not that way, but they are emotionally. It emotionally feels that way. And so, and mostly because of these sabotages that we're talking about now. Okay, so instead of saying I can't, ask yourself, what can I do instead? Okay, what can I do to treat myself in a new way? What can I do to treat myself with healthy, fresh foods? What can I do if I'm feeling stressed? What new things can I do? Going for a walk, meditating, closing your eyes and saying some prayers that actually make you feel loved and safe and cared for. Using one of my audio brain software programs that'll make you feel refreshed and relaxed in 20 minutes or less, and you'll feel suddenly empowered. And then you won't feel guilty afterwards because you just binged out. And then you'll sleep better at night, which means you're going to wake up tomorrow with the deck already stacked in your favor, right? So that's how we keep setting ourselves up for success instead of setting ourselves up to feel guilty and to emotionally beat up on ourselves and all the other crap that we do. Okay, so let's move on. All right, so our next one, instead of can't, we're going to focus on what can I do, what is possible. Sorry, I'm swinging this phone all over the place. All right, sabotage number 4. It's boring. Eating healthy is boring, okay? And if you tell yourself that eating healthy is boring, you're doing it wrong. If you think that the only way to eat healthy is carrots and celery, you're wrong. Right? You just haven't investigated it enough. There are so many healthy foods out there, and you just get used to having a variety of them because that's what we do anyway. If you look at all the food that you consume, most of it is the same stuff. It's the same brand of cookies, it's the same brand of ice cream, it's the same brand of pasta, it's the same brand of whatever it is, pizza, cardboard pizza, right? It's the same brands all the time. And you're just going through it over and over and over. So what we do is we create a new set of foods. We replace the old foods one at a time. We'll get to that. We replace the old foods with the new foods that have more energy, that have more vitality. I always think if it came from a plant or a tree or the ground or the sea, it's for me, right? I want to eat as many foods as I can that you can juice, right? That you can put in a juicer and get some juice, some vitality, some energy out of it. So you can't juice breadsticks, okay? You can't juice a pizza, you can't juice cookies. So you want to eat foods that have high water content because those foods make you feel alive. Why? Because your body is a high water content being. And when you're eating in that way, this planet is a high water content planet. And so when we start introducing stuff that's not good for the system, then the system shuts down. You see the global warming and all the stuff that's happening to our planet and our weather, and people can ignore it all they want and reframe it and call it different things, but it's still, you know, our pollution is wrecking the planet. And so it's a real problem. Human beings are eventually going to become like this virus to the planet. And so I don't want to go into that whole thing, okay, but what we're going to focus on is what we can do with your body and making sure that we're protecting your body. Okay, so when we talk about foods being boring, we've got to change our strategy. For that, let me share a story with you. So I was teaching a class one time, and I had a client named Virginia, and she wanted to lose, I think, like 40 pounds, and she was down about 20 of it, and but she hit this plateau, and so she was at the class, and she was talking to her friends that were in the class about her southern cooking, right? She was talking about her fried chicken and her biscuits and gravy and all this heavy food. And I could tell that people were starting to get hungry, even though I was starting to feel tired hearing her, because I have a different mindset, right? I've changed it around. That junk food seemed boring to me, and the other stuff, the fried chicken and all that stuff, you know, seemed exciting to them. And so I said, all right, intervention time. So I walked over to her in the group and I said, Virginia, tell me about, you know, your healthy eating. And she said, what? Like carrots and celery? She says, oh, rabbit food. It's so boring. And I said, this is the problem you're having. You're in plateau not because there's something wrong with you physically. You're in plateau simply because you are making all the foods that are holding you back and keeping you stuck, you're making them sound amazing. And then all the foods that would give you health and energy and wellness and vitality, you're making them sound boring. And that's why you're not eating them. And she goes, yeah, I guess you're right. And then I said, so I want you to change your strategy. I want you to start thinking about healthy foods as exciting and motivating and yummy and delicious, right? And I want you to think about all that greasy food, all the fried foods, all that stuff as being tiring, right? Making you feel tired. And she looked at me like I had two heads. She's like, huh? And I said, just try it. And because we had enough rapport, she's like, okay, I'm gonna try this. So I saw her about 3 weeks later, and she comes in my office and she's all smiling. And I said, Virginia, why are you smiling? She says, I'm down 7 more pounds. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. I said, what have you been doing? She says, let me tell you about my Hawaiian buffets. She says, I get out my wooden bowl, and then I go and I get my greens from the garden, and then I put all my treats in the salad. I put my reds and my yellows and my greens. I'm like, what are your treats? And she says, you know, my peppers and my tomatoes and my cucumbers. And she says, and I use my best crystal glass, and I fill that with water, and then I put a slice of sunshine on there, a little piece of lemon. I put a slice of sunshine on there, and ooh, child, I feel like I'm on vacation every time. And I'm like, that sounds amazing. I said, what about the fried chicken? And she goes, fried chicken? She says, that makes me feel greasy. I haven't had that in weeks. And I was like, yes. You see, she changed her strategy. She made the greasy chicken feel boring, and she made the healthy food feel energizing. It sounded exciting and appealing and attractive. She associated pleasure to it, which is why she moved towards it. And that was the secret. If you associate pain to something, you're going to naturally procrastinate. If you associate pleasure to something, you're going to naturally move towards it. So the goal is to associate massive pleasure to the activities that you want to engage in more often, and associate pain to the things that are holding you back. Okay? Awesome. All right, let's move on. All right, hang on, I'm going to pause for a second so I can switch these cards. Okay, the next one, are you ready? Drum roll, please. Self-sabotage. Okay, self-sabotage. So when we talk about self-sabotage, when we are talking about mindset and self-sabotage, one of the things that comes to mind is when we start telling ourselves that that having to lose this weight is so unfair. I hear people all the time saying, how am I ever going to get this weight off? How am I ever going to do this? How am I ever going to do this? I got to get this weight off. I got to do this. I got to do that. And then they don't do anything. I remember that I was at a networking event, and there was a woman, I was talking to her, and she didn't know what I did for a living, and she was announcing that she was starting this new healthy plan, and she was going to get really fit and healthy, and she was really excited about it, and she started today, and she was really motivated. And I was giving her lots of encouragement, and she was kind of surprised by that, right? Because I was just like, oh, that's great, and you can try this and this, and she's like, oh, yeah. And then a waiter came by with hors d'oeuvres. And as the waiter came by with hors d'oeuvres, she looked at the tray and she said, ooh, is that pizza rolls? Right? And the next thing you know, she had 2 of them in her face. Now, I had a friend, Joe Vitale, tell me one time that money loves speed. And what he meant by that was, if you have something, a goal that you want to go after, you have to do something right away to go after it, right? You have to create momentum immediately, because if you don't take action right away, then it's going to slip away, right? Life will distract you, and before you know it, you're off track and you're not doing the things that you said you were going to do. That's what happened to her, right? She was doing all these sabotages and didn't even know it, because most people don't know that this is happening. It's totally out of our awareness, and because it's out of well, not my awareness, but out of their awareness, right? And so because people aren't aware of it, they can't change it. A big part of what I do in my program is help people become aware of their self-sabotages, because they have no idea they're doing it to themselves. And believe me, we are sabotaging ourselves all the time. I call them blind spots, right? It's a blind spot. You don't know what you don't know. I had a coach tell me one time, he says, Tim, you can't see the label when you're in the bottle, right? You can't be objective with yourself. And so between all that advice of taking action and doing things that are gonna, taking action right away and focusing on becoming aware of your blind spots, that's how you start to overcome self-sabotage. All right, so let's keep going here. All right, the next one which is number 6. Sorry. Number 6 is stress. Okay? You ever feel stressed? You ever feel like you have anxiety? Often when people are trying to lose weight and they can't, it's because they have high stress. And what they're doing is eating to try to deal with the stress, but then that just causes more stress. Human beings are brilliant at trying to avoid pain by doing things that creates more pain. And so we got to make sure that instead of just trying to focus on losing weight, that's the symptom, right? You got to focus on the source, and often the source is our stress and our anxiety. So you want to take a look at when we have stress, what we really have, there's no such thing as stress management, it's thought management, okay? Stress just means that you are not focusing on the outcomes that you want, you're focusing on what you're afraid of. Now, you might have situations that are frustrating, okay? But you can help yourself feel calm and reassured as you go through it. And I've helped people go through, the worst kinds of situations, and human beings are amazingly resourceful. Now, some big stuff happens, and we need to rely on our friends and do a lot of power breathing and pray and keep focusing on what can I control. But most of the stuff that we're stressed about isn't that. Most of the stuff we're stressed about is stuff that we don't have to be stressed about. We could feel much more calm and peaceful, but we are allowing our mind to get the best of us. We keep playing these worst case scenarios in our head. Your mind works like a GPS. You type in the destination that you want to arrive at, and it starts to take you there one step at a time. Well, your mind works the same way. You have to keep focusing on what you want because you're going to move in that direction. What you think about comes about. What you think about expands, right? Whatever you think about most of the time, that's what your life ends up being. And so we've got to make sure that we're constantly asking ourselves, all right, what's the outcome that I want? How do I want to feel? What resources do I have? Who can I lean on for support? What can I do right now to start moving in this direction? And as you keep focusing your mind on the outcomes that you want, then you're going to start to build more momentum. You're going to start to feel more peaceful. And then, of course, if you go for a walk, it's not to lose weight. You're going for a walk to connect with nature, right? To feel peaceful, to spiritually fill up inside instead of feeling like you're on a low charge all the time. So we've got to make sure that we address the stress because it's a big deal. I've known people that have eaten like a bird and exercised every day, and they did not lose weight. Why? Because of stress. And so we've got to make sure that we take that into account. Okay, 2 more. Okay, perfectionism, number 7. 7, perfectionism. So many people feel like they have to be perfect. There's all or nothing. If I don't do it all perfect, then I'm not going to do it, right? And so and I always say, all right, imagine that you have a waiter and he has a tray full of glasses. And one of the glasses falls off the tray and it falls on the ground and it breaks. What do? Do you then say, well, I guess I got to dump the whole tray and knock the whole tray over and smashing all the glasses? No, you just focus on one. You're like, okay, that broke. I'm going to put the rest down and I'm going to clean that up. But 90% of the time, things are going pretty good, so I'm going to be all right. But that's not what most people do. Most people focus on that 10%. They focus on the glass that broke. And so we've got to make sure that it's not about perfectionism or being perfect at all, because that is an overwhelm. That is a sabotage, okay? Instead, we're not going to focus on being perfect. We're going to focus on doing the best we can in this moment. And every moment we're going to try to do the best we can, which means that you're going to focus on your small victories and your small wins. And you just keep focusing on what is working and what is happening. At the start of every session, when a private client comes in, I always ask the same 2 questions. What's going well? And what do you want to improve on? Because if I don't ask that, a lot of times people would come in and I'd say, how's it going? And they would tell me all the things that were, going wrong. And then I'd be like, oh my gosh, has anything gone well? And they'd say, well, I did lose 3 pounds and I stopped drinking soda. And I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? You made it sound like the ship was going down. But that's what people do. They focus on what isn't working and then it just messes them up. It creates more stress, which releases more cortisol in your body, which causes your body to store fat instead of release it. And then it just goes on and on. So we've got to make sure that instead of trying to be perfect, we're going to focus on just doing the very best we can and being more loving of ourselves instead of being so darn judgmental and critical. if you're doing that to yourself, you probably experienced that growing up, and we might need to do a little healing and get rid of that, because you don't need that anymore. It's not serving you, and really, you're better than that. All right, the last one, no boundaries. Okay, no boundaries. This is the last one. And with no boundaries, what I mean by that is that we are not setting boundaries with those around us. And that is a problem. If we don't set boundaries with those around us, then we are going to feel like people are always sabotaging us. But the truth is that people only sabotage you if you give them permission to. You're the one that you can't be an enabler. You have to set boundaries, and then you have to reinforce those boundaries. If I tell my kid to go to bed and he doesn't go to bed and I don't do anything about it, that's my fault, not his. I have to make sure that I reinforce those boundaries. And so one of the ways that you do that is by saying, hey, this is how it's going to be. And sometimes you can say, depending on the situation, I want you to support me with this. And if you do, then we're going to hang out more. And if you don't, then we're not going to hang out more, because I got to take care of myself. And then that's exactly what you do. And so if you have a sibling, I've had clients that said every time I start to get healthy, they all ignore me, right? Because they have their own obesity problems, or they're like, who do you think you are? What, are you special now? Right? That is all their stuff, not yours. Those are not your clowns, not your circus, okay? If someone else is acting that way or being that way, that is not your issue. You have to stay in your lane and focus on you. And so, yeah, I'm feeling special. I'm gonna take care of myself, because if I don't take care of myself, who's gonna? Right? Not you. You ain't going to take care of me, so I got to take care of me. Right? And so, and if someone has a problem with you feeling good and loved and taking care of yourself, then that should be a red flag that you need to definitely put a boundary there, because they should be supporting you and loving you and encouraging you. And if they're not, then they're probably not good for you in your life. So I saw someone the other day online. She said, my husband keeps calling me fat no matter what I do. And somebody said, the fastest way to lose 180 pounds is to just get rid of your husband. And there was, a lot of validity to that, because again, if you have people that are not supporting you, one of the reasons why is probably because you're allowing them to get away with that. And so you've got to make sure that and remember that people will treat you the way you treat yourself. So if you're acting like a doormat, people are going to line up to walk all over you. Okay? If you never tell your kids no because you want their approval, then they're always going to be wanting you to do something, and then you're never going to have time to take care of yourself, and then you're going to say it's because of my family when it's not. It's because of you. So by you taking care of yourself in this way, it's a huge win, right? It makes a giant difference. So those are all 8 of the mindset sabotages. Now the next time, tomorrow night, we're going to go for another walk, and we're going to talk about the strategy sabotages and how to turn that around. So share this with your friends, like it, love it, leave me questions and comments if you have any. Thanks for taking this walk with me. I appreciate you, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Bye, everybody.
Hey, would you like more free tips on how to be a mesmerizing leader? Then check out mesmerizingleadership.com, and also hang out with me on Facebook, facebook.com/Tim Sure. Thanks so much, and make your day a sure success.